I forgot to.
I took care of your recording. You're fine.
Thank you. That's what I just thought about. Okay, so also today, as we are going through our sessions, we encourage you to share on social media for everyone else to see that you are attending this conference today. And please use hashtag NCAEE21. All right. Before we begin today, I wanted to give you a brief overview of what the North Carolina Association of Elementary Educators is. We were founded in fall of 2005 as part of DPI. We are the only professional organization in North Carolina that's an express advocate for and to serve elementary educators and elementary level children. You can check our website out at www.ncelementary.com. Our agenda today is as follows. We will have a welcome and keynote presentation until 9:45. Then we will go into breakout sessions. We'll have breakout session 1 and breakout session 2. We do want you to note that there is a very quick changeover from breakout session 1 to breakout session 2. Then we have evaluations and door prizes and closing remarks, and you'll be done by noon today. Please note that you must fill out the evaluation form at the end in order to receive CEUs. If you do not fill out that form, you will not receive your CEU certificate. It will come to you directly in the email after you fill out the form. A few housekeeping things for you. Thank you in advance for your patience as we work through our very first virtual conference. I know we are in unprecedented times and all of us are trying something new in our classrooms, so we want to make sure that we are giving grace to our presenters and our team members as we are working through this virtual world. Please, if at all possible, keep your cameras and microphones off unless explicitly asked by our speakers. That will help with bandwidth and making sure that things are not lagging. If a session is full, please try another session. Some of our sessions are capped at a certain number of participants in those sessions due to the Zoom links that we are using. So if a session is full, please go ahead and try another session. Technology issues. If you are having technology issues, when you click on that link and scroll down, there are some additional phone features to phone into the conference if the links are not working. Or you can contact our resident technology expert at charles.bowden@gmail.com. He is here with us this morning. He will help us as he can, and if you need that email again, it should be in your email with the link to your sessions. Remember that we will be recording most, not all, of these sessions. There are some session, or there's one specific session that is not going to be recorded, but we will share out the information from that session if you are unable to attend. The links to these session videos will be shared after the conference is over. It takes a little bit for Zoom to process the videos, but we will get them out to you as soon as we are possibly able to do that. Also, I just wanted to add on here that we did have a cancellation this morning due to unforeseen circumstances. Dr. Drew Polly was unable to be here, and he was one of our first rotation speakers, so I apologize for that. We do encourage you to please choose another session, and we are going to try to touch base with him next week to see if he might be able to send out a recording of his session instead. Carol, would you like to introduce our speaker?
I sure would. We are honored to welcome Dr. Ruth Steidinger as our NCAEE keynote speaker. Dr. Steidinger was named the North Carolina Regional Principal of the Year in 2020. She is a graduate of Meredith College, NC Central University, and East Carolina University. You can read more about Dr. Steidinger's passions for education and leadership in the conference program that you received via email. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Ruth Steidinger.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Carol. That was kind. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and let's kick things off. So while I'm pulling up my screen, I want to tell you what a tremendous opportunity I see this to be. It was such a great opportunity for me to go back and reflect on what this year has meant and how we've journeyed it. So what you're going to hear today is when Carol showed me the title of the conference, Change, Challenge, and Opportunity, it just immediately came about. Now I chose to represent these words as how they have been reflection of my journey in this past year with me and my school, and as well as just how we've managed to handle this pandemic in school. So what I'm going to encourage you to do as I share our journey, I want you to reflect on your journey too, and just how you've taken on the challenge of the change. And then I'm going to leave with what has been compelling for me as an opportunity that has presented itself pretty strongly in the midst of this pandemic. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to take a moment, look at these gifts, and if you would please just put in the chat which one of these, how are you feeling about the 2020-21 school year? I'm just curious. And Charlie, I'm trying to see how I can enable my chat so that I can see in person.
Click on the chat, the epithet. It's probably at the top since you're sharing. There might be a little roll down. If you'll hover up near the top of your screen, there should be a little box where you can pop out the chat. It looks like you're getting a lot of replies. So
I know it was there earlier, but it's not now. So I don't know what is wrong. So Charlie, why don't you call out what we're seeing, because I can't see the chat box, unfortunately.
it's a mix. There's a lot. Most people seem to be above average, or over 5. That is, they are lots of 8s and 9s, some 10s.
Yeah, 10. I see that one. Yeah.
And so,
I want to know if there's anybody that's given us a 3.
There are some 3s.
All right. There we go. I love it. I love it.
There's also some 2s, but I don't see many 1s. So
I guess
that's good,
chat.
right?
And there we go. I finally got the chat open. There we go. It was in a different place than it typically is. Got a 9 too. I love it. That's great. Okay. 7. 7 is one of my favorites, I will say. That's great. All right, well, let's move on. So one of the things that I continue to remind myself is how I manage this change is ultimately in my hands. And so I knew that for me, intentionality is huge. The intentionality of my actions and how I care for myself was going to be critical in this transition, because I was modeling for my staff, just as teachers model for their students. And what I believed was one of my greatest responsibilities was to provide tools to those I serve, so that it assisted them along this journey. But before I could do that, I really had to understand and be clear of the impact of change. So I took the time to understand what physically and emotionally happens to people in the midst of change. So I'm going to share with you, this is some of the science of change, and trust me, I'm not going to go too deep into the science because I know that can kind of go, woo. But what I do think is important is that we understand what happens to us in the midst of change so that we can mitigate or adjust as needed. And so Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, as many of you know, had wrote a book on death and dying, and her curve of change, while people may not be experiencing a death, there is some grief in change, and that's part of what we all need to understand. And so you see that there are 4 stages of change, the status quo, where there's this shock and denial, this disruption, exploration, and rebuilding. And one of the things that was critical was that I understand how to disrupt or use the change curve to my advantage. And so if I wanted to manage people's emotions, I need to understand what to do in the initial stage. And for the initial stage of 1, it was critical for communication, but not too much and not to be too overwhelming in that. Whoops, I'm sorry. My computer is acting funny this morning. So here's the grace part. So thank you, grace and patience. So when you consider the balance that had to exist, one of the things that I knew that was going to be important is that I kept some things constant for them. And so we as a school had taken the opportunity the previous year to read one of my favorite books, My She Wrote Dare to Lead, Brene Brown. And so at the onset, Brene Brown has this activity, these values activities, where we had taken the time to, and all of this, just so you know, I'm going to provide for this slideshow for everyone, so you can do these things on your own. We took the time to do this activity, and what, and John Maxwell does this as well. The end objective is to come down with your 2 core values. And so for me, my 2 core values are courage and making a difference. And so what we wanted to make sure that we did is that we hung on to those core values. So we spent some time revisiting those in the midst of this craziness, because, you know, March, everything, almost a year ago, everything disrupted. So what could we hang on to? And we knew that our vision statement was critical to us. And so, our vision statement is communicated in our master schedule, and the way that we treat our PLTs, the collaboration time. So we were very conscientious about maintaining the integrity of the things that had mattered to us all along. So those were some constants that we made sure that we hung on to in the midst of change, because that does help with some of the fear and anxiety that goes on during these times. Be clear on expectations. Well, I will tell you that that was huge, because in times of uncertainty, when people didn't know, I mean, how many of us signed up to teach in a virtual world? Very few of us did. And so we were, and you'll see in a little bit how we managed this, it was incredibly uncertain as to what was the spring going to look like? What was the upcoming school year going to look like? So each day I worked hard to be clear on the expectations, but the tremendous balance was keeping them informed versus being overwhelmed. And I'll give you an example. As a principal, and one of the things that you'll learn about me is I'm incredibly transparent, and because I think that's important to staff, and I try to be authentic in my words. So we were getting daily emails, and this is in Wake County, and the emails would read critical, action needed. Well, for me, what I came to learn of myself was that was creating a tremendous amount of anxiety for me. So just those simple words, what I took from that was my understanding and the need to not do that to my staff. I'm not bad mouthing what was done by the district, because they had to do what they had to do, but that was self-preservation, because when it comes at me, critical, action needed, in the midst of a time of tremendous change, I had to take a step back and mitigate some of that, so that I didn't do to my staff what was being done to me, and filter what I gave to them. So that was critical. So I'm curious as to how you manage some of that as well. I want you to think about this, because I'm going to ask you where you are in terms of the change curve. So the second stage of change, this, as they say, could be the danger zone. And what's I think is important here for us to understand is that we get real clear. This is a delicate balance of allowing people to grieve and moving forward. I don't know about you, but I think we all did grieve a loss for what we came to this profession to do. And it's not that we're not doing that now, but it was really a challenge to not see kids in the building, to not be able to sit beside a child and help them with a particular task. That was a challenge, and that there was a tremendous amount of grief around that. So I think what was important at this time is that the staff was looking for me for guidance on how to mitigate or journey through the grief of this. And so I had to honor some of that. And I hope that you've honored that for yourself, because there is some grief around a tremendous shift in what we were called to do and what we're being asked to do now. And so honoring that, but not letting people sit there, was critical. So in this, we listen and watch and respond. Those are three of the three key words during this second stage. Listen, watch, and respond. How attentive you are to your staff and being able to be responsive was critical, so that they didn't spiral down into a negative place. And that's what they call this, the critical part of the stage. If you don't tend to those things, if I didn't tend to those things, we could have gotten to a very negative place. And that's tending to it personally and both as a school. And so the anticipation of those impacts were important. And so I felt like it was important for me to be transparent. As I say here, these are three critical words for me: transparent, authentic, and intentional in my actions, and to try to be very responsive. It was exhausting. So we're going to move to the next part in a minute, which is the challenge part, which is self-care. Just as I know it was exhausting for my teachers to be what they needed to be for their students, I was trying to understand the challenges they were experiencing were similar to what I was experiencing. So I had to model the appropriateness of the balance between caring for others and caring for self. So listening, watching, responding was critical here. Stage 3, this is the turning point for the organization. And I'm going to show you some places where you will see, and I want you to think of when it may have happened for your organization as well. This is where we start to accept the reality. And that, I don't know about y'all, but there were times when I was like, okay, this is going to end. This is going to end. Well, we're in February. We're almost in February, almost a year later. So it is going to end. But what I couldn't keep doing was anticipating the end. I had to work to stay in the present moment to ensure that I was providing for my staff what they needed. Just as teachers, my teachers were having to do the same. We can't anticipate that tomorrow this may all end. What do they need from me now? And so I had to make sure that my staff felt equipped and well-trained, because this was our new reality. So some of the things that we did, we had an immediate rollout. Because if you'll remember, I don't know how, in Wake County, we kind of put things on pause and everything was just no new learning was allowed, but yet we had to make sure that our teachers were providing some contact for students while learning how to teach on a new platform. So this is just an example of how we hit the ground running. Tremendous kudos to my staff and the things that they did. We tried to empower teachers to become experts for things like Nearpod, for Jamboard. We empowered them, and that in this change curve was huge, because the empowerment part helped them move along the trajectory of that curve, because it created a sense of belief that we had in each of them. So this is just an example of how we hit the ground running. This was the initial training. And then as we moved into August, and I'm curious to hear where y'all were, we got real intentional about the training there, because we knew that now it was the way things were going to be. So what I want you to see here is that what we did is very intentional work around the balancing of training, but giving them time to develop their skill set. And then really important over here is that you see highlighted is we tended to the self-care aspect of things too. And if there's no message that I give, no greater message that I give you today, is self-care is tremendous during this time. Absolutely tremendous, because this can be very isolating. So we recognize that was critical. We had We did trainings, as I imagine many of you did, empowering staff, because many of them had taken the lead on things. And so it was nice to give them the opportunity to be the experts and to share with their colleagues how to do things in a remote world. This is my favorite right here. I thought you might get a giggle out of this. We did this one little training about what's appropriate and what's not. The bad angle, the eater, the professional. I thought these were great. So we just took some time to ensure that they felt empowered for the journey. And that was in the stage 3. And stage 4, this is the one we've been waiting for. This is when we celebrated. And y'all, I'm tremendously proud of where they've come. And I'm sure that you need, and what I would encourage you to do is to make sure that you are celebrating your journey. When I was looking back at where we started in last March, half the tools that I know now had never taken the time to even learn. And while I know that life will be different and we will forever be different as a result of this opportunity, I do believe that it will make us better teachers. I do. And I certainly do still consider myself a teacher. So we embraced the change and celebrated. Here you see my staff. We did 15-minute, we did like a mini ed camp. These are teachers leading professional developments. I get a little emotional about this. This is where they worked so hard to be the amazing teachers that they were being called to be during this unprecedented time. And then they wanted to share. They wanted to share the things that they had learned, how to develop jobs for students that encourages the level of engagement that we need. The goal setting. I mean, everything is just such a challenge in virtual world because the connection with kids is a challenge, different than it is if I'm sitting right here having a goal setting conference with my child, because setting goals is a part of our vision statement. So we wanted to make sure that we carried that forward. I celebrated the staff. It was critical that we celebrate the staff. My PTA is amazing. We put this sign in every educator's yard. We went to every single staff member's house at Olive Chapel, gave them the sign and a Mr. A's beignets treat. And then at the holiday time, we had Eddie B, comedian, PTA hired him, and we celebrated by laughing. What was so critical during this stage 4, and really through the whole journey, is that I honored the hard work that I saw every single day. And so I hope that you honored your hard work, because that is, sitting back and giving yourself the opportunity in the present moment to honor the hard work of the shift is huge, because you have worked hard. They have worked hard. I knew that I needed to celebrate them, and that's what keeps the momentum. We also needed to celebrate our kids. So every week we honored a student who was a star student, and I went to their home. Okay, we started with t-shirts, and then we started with yard signs. And these were some of the things that we were doing in the brick and mortar, and we knew we needed to maintain that. And this truly is about managing the mental health of the students as well as the staff, because we have what's the word I want? We have I can't think of it. We celebrate staff by providing them a Mind Tip bracelet, which is an opportunity for a staff to honor another staff member with a word that they believe that they exemplify. And mindtent.org is a great organization where a young man wants to change the world one conversation with one word conversations at a time. And so we maintained that. There's everything that we could in terms of things that we believed honored our vision and mission, we continued during the virtual world. That was critical. That goes back to the need to maintain some sense of normalcy for people in the time of grief. So what I'm curious to know is, what stage are you in? When you consider the curve, I'm curious to know where you are, and it's going to take a moment for you to reflect, but there's a QR code there and a bit.ly. If you'll just type that in, I'd love to see where you are. I mean, this is all across North Carolina, and I have, as North Carolina Regional Principal of the Year, I've had the opportunity to talk with others, the other North Carolina Regional Principals, and I've learned a lot. I mean, Wake County is a fortunate county with resources, but I have seen some tremendous things from my colleagues. So I'm just curious to see where you are. So give me a minute to get that code, and then we're going to try to take a look at a summary of where people are. Nice. I appreciate the honesty in all this. I really do. Yeah, the anger and fear still resides at times. I'm gonna be honest, it does for me as well. Absolutely. There are days when I'm like, oh, come on. Monday was hard. Monday was hard for me. And one of the things that I realized is that I was not doing as good a job with my self-care. And so I had to take a step back. So it is critical that we continue. I mean, because on the curve of grief, and any of you who've experienced loss and grief and loss, it takes a full year to journey through that cycle. And so we're not even at the end of the full year yet. And sometimes you fluctuate back in the curve, and I respect and honor that. I had, quite honestly, in January when we came back, staff had about 3 weeks of 3 weeks opportunity, 3 or 4 weeks opportunity to renew. And I thought, great, everybody's going to be renewed, ready to go. There's a fatigue. There's a fatigue with this that exists. And I saw that fatigue when they came back in January, because it takes a whole nother skill set to teach this way. And so we started with professional development in January. I was trying to be attentive and aware, and I saw this fatigue, and I took a step back, and we just had some real honest conversations about the fact that we are here, and it's going to last a bit. And so let's take a step back, do what we can to renew our energy. And we equipped people in a way that helped them feel more successful as they moved into the second semester. But you are going to fluctuate. I see the majority of the people are out in stage 3. That makes sense. Exploration and acceptance. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's days when I'm like, do I really want to accept this? Because I'm keep anticipating that it's going to change. We're going to go back. So thank you for indulging me in that challenge. So this one, this continues, this challenge remains, it doesn't change. So when I started this journey, this is my whiteboard in my office at home office. And you see up there at the top, it says at the end of this, how do I want to be known? So, and these are just some of the notes of how I interpreted these 3 words. This was as soon as Carol sent me the email and the theme, these things came out, these pillars came out: change, challenge, and opportunity. And the challenge for me daily is managing the care of self and managing the care of staff. And while the science of the stages is huge, and it's an understanding that we all need to have, the challenge is daily. It is daily. And recognizing and honor that will be important for you as you serve your students. Because for you, while it may be, the challenge for me is balancing this self-care with the care of those I serve. And for me, it's staff. For you, it's students. And it does take a tremendous amount of energy to care for students in the virtual world. It absolutely does. We have addressed right now where one of the things that we're working on is cameras on, and not knowing where some of our kids are in terms of their well-being because their cameras are off. And, that alone takes a lot of energy. Whereas if a student was sitting right beside you, you could say, pick your head up, right? So there's only so much that's within your control when it's they're sitting at home and they're in a screen. And so it does take a lot more energy. I was in a classroom yesterday with a teacher who had asked me to please come talk to her class because they are good kids, but weren't showing up the way they could. And there is that opportunity, unfortunately, for kids to do that. It's so much easier for them to disengage in the virtual world. And I think you're finding that. And so as a result, it's requiring a lot more energy on your part to maintain that engagement. She had emailed parents, she had sent them dojo, all within the morning just to get kids on, which is a lot of energy right out of the gate. And so your awareness of that is critical because it's zapping you of your personal energy. So what are you doing for self-care? That's the challenge. And so for me, when I go back to this up here at the end of this, how do I want to be known? Because there are days when I'm like, I don't know about this anymore. I got 32 years in retirement. But is that really how I want to be known at the end of this? And so that I leave that message up there as a reminder, and I actually have it on my computer here as a reminder to take care of me so that I can take care of those I serve. And so I encourage you to do the same. This is something from which I am tremendously passionate. Make a list of what you can and can't control. That was huge for me, right? I couldn't control the fact that I got an email every single day that had, and I'm not sure what's going on there. Whew, that's interesting. Did y'all see that yellow thing? That was weird.
I believe that's your annotation controls or someone annotated it.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. I couldn't control that every day I was going to get an email that said critical action needed. When I say that to y'all, doesn't that just kind of bring about a little, wah? It did for me, right? And honestly, that's what it said. Every day we got a daily email, critical. And then you open it up and I'm like, is it really critical? Is that really critical? Can we use a different word? Those were things that were going on in my head. So I had to make a decision, and those always came at the end of the day. And that was something that was frustrating. And intentions behind whoever was sending those emails, I don't judge that. Right? I just was paying attention to my response. And I'm telling you this because y'all need to do the same thing. I was paying attention to my response to that email. It could be email from a parent that may trigger you, right? I made the decisions not to open those emails. I did, because at the end of the day, it always came between 4 and 5 o'clock. I refused to work well into the evening. I had to work on disengaging. And so I made the decision that was within I couldn't control whether or not those emails came, but what I could control is whether or not I opened it. And so that's an example. Also, I had to stop watching some of the news. It just, it was a lot, right? Our country was in unrest for various reasons, the pandemic. And so I just had to make some decisions to not watch the news. I can't control I couldn't control the decisions of the Board of Education. But what I could control is how I responded to those, what my attitude was going to be. I can't control other people's motives. I had to continue to remind myself the things that were in my control and the things that are not, and you would need to do the same. And that one I'm sticking with for a little bit because I think that is huge. And that's what I have twin daughters that are 22 and, they graduated from Carolina in the midst of a pandemic, right? And they are trying to find jobs. And one of them's at a fellow, one of them's working part-time. What a time to try to find a job, right? And we do we have a lot of conversations about what's within your control and what's not. And it doesn't mean that we throw our hands up. It's how do we manage the things that are coming at us? It'll be huge for your self-care. I did have to limit my media, not just the news, but social media too. I think when we're in isolation, we have a tendency to want to go to that because that feels like a way to connect. But you can overdo that too. And I think that can not serve you well. So you want to pay attention to that. I love this one, get and provide warm, comforting social support by video, phone, or text. So there are, I have a best friend that lives in Texas and she owns a jazzercise class. And so every Friday night, She and her staff have a happy hour together. And just finding ways to reinvent the warmth of social media, because social media can be so stark and challenging, right? And with messages and with Twitter or Facebook. So how do we utilize, because this is how many of us are interacting, and in a way that's comforting. Find ways of expressing kindness, patience, and compassion. So I encourage you to do this, because one of the things that I did at the very onset of this pandemic is I gave a handwritten letter to every single staff member, telling them why I valued them, and getting out of myself and seeing and really being intentional and expressing my words of gratitude for each and every single person was huge. You could do that with your students, write a personal note. And it really helped me reshape how I saw every staff member too. During a time when people can get on your nerves, let's be honest, right? How do I shift my focus? Because again, that's something that I can control. So how can I shift my perspective on each of my staff members in a time that's challenging? Learn to value what you, be intentional about expressing what you value of each of them. Create new routines and keep practicing healthy behaviors. I should say healthy behaviors. And this pandemic can disrupt the routines. I don't know about y'all, but there are days whenever I could literally roll out of bed if I'm working from home, get down in front of that computer and not leave. That is not healthy, right? I'm seeing Megan nod her head. Yep. It's not healthy. And so, how do I get intentional about setting the boundaries around that? And let's move to working well from home. And I have an office at home. I do come to work quite a bit too, but I'm social distancing right now because I have elderly parents who are moving. So I've been working from home. And so I have to get real clear on boundaries for that. And you will have to do the same thing, because it is so easy, if working from home, to keep it on forever. But you got to designate a space and say, this is time for work. I'm done. Close that door and go watch some mindless TV. Netflix has become my best friend. I don't know about y'all, but I love some Netflix. Anybody got any good suggestions? Put them in the chat. If you haven't watched Queen's Gambit, that's a good one. So these are just some of the aspects of things of how to manage your work home, your workspace at home. Eat well. I mean, we all get told that. It does matter. And I am a huge proponent of this. So one of the things that I do when I do growth mindset talks is I help people see the science behind negative talk and positive talk. And the best visual example I give is negative talk is like Velcro. And positive talk, unfortunately, is like Teflon. So for instance, if I do this presentation and, everybody but one person loved it, what do you think I'm going to remember most? What's the tendency for us to do? Is to remember the one negative, right? And that's why self-talk is so huge, because people, we're going to get criticism all the time. People and that's something that's not within your control. What I try to do is take a step back and not personalize that, and understand that if someone's being negative, it's oftentimes as a result of where they are in their place in life. And so what I can control is, it doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It doesn't mean that everything that I've delivered is perfect, and I will do some self-reflection. But to personalize it in a way that sends you to a bad place isn't healthy. So that's why self-talk, the power of self-talk, and therapists will tell you there's this tool that they use that's called thought stopping. And it's truly just using the word stop when in your head you start ruminating over something that you can't control, that's not healthy, and certainly isn't presenting for you a healthy perspective of self. So during this time, when it is so challenging, it is so important that you work on the positive self-talk. Now, I'm a huge believer in meditation. Not everybody is, but I am. And I do transcendental meditation twice a day. It helps me to learn to be more present in conversations, which helps me respond in a healthier way. Because I can be reactionary. I think any of us can be. And so when put in a position of challenging conversations, if I'm taking care of self, then I do a better job of responding in a more effective way. That will be true with your kids. That will be true with your kids who annoy the heck out of you. You know, we all have them, right? And so recognizing that there's something going on with that. When I'm right with me, I'm able to recognize that whatever is going on with that person is something that perhaps if I enter the conversation in a way that's receptive, it changes their behaviors as well. And that's been one of the hardest things, you know, is to maintain that sense of awareness so that I serve others who are struggling better. But that goes back, that's my responsibility. Again, that goes back to something within my control. I don't know, many of you probably have Apple Watches, and do you have the thing that comes on and says breathe? Yeah, okay. So there are times whenever I'm like breathing, like, yeah, no, I'm not breathing right now. Not a good idea. Always pay attention to the breathes. So we did create very early on. I saw staff struggling, and I reached out to my student support services and said, I need y'all to create something for staff. They need a support lounge. They really do. And so, and this is public. So when I share this with you guys, you're going to be able to see any of this, use any of these resources. And so in here, it's a plethora of resources that has ways of meditating, some different things that you can do for self-care. Go down here. So you'll see all these are hyperlinks: guided meditation, safe place visualization, some coloring. You cannot underestimate the importance of doing these types of things. You really can't. You can only operate on go for so long. You've got to take the time to slow down and do the things that take care of yourself, or it will show up in negative ways at some point in time. It will. Grace and patience. Grace, 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 tremendous. We also created one for students. And again, this will be public for you guys to use. We believe in sharing whatever we do. So we saw kids struggling. So we shared this with our families. And so you'll see up here, yoga for kids, mindfulness activities, I mean, attitude of gratitude. You know, Oprah Winfrey believes in a gratitude journal. You know, and I think there is power in that, and starting your day with honoring the things for which you're grateful. It sets the tone for your day. Again, please don't underestimate the importance of these things, because it does shape your attitude as you move into challenging days. So I'm curious to see what are some of the things that you do for self-care. I learned from people on this one. So here's another opportunity. This is a Padlet. So if you'll go in and either use the QR code or Bitly and name some of the things you do for self-care. I'd like to see those things. And we'll look at it together in just a minute, give everybody the opportunity to capture that. Yeah, I put up there in the corner, anything goes. I think I did. There is this thing where it's not allow profanity. So I did put that one on there. We practiced this and it was fun with some things. Daily walks with my dogs. I love that. Cook a new meal. Oh, I love that one. Yes, I'm a big cook, so that one's huge. I love that. Yoga, painting. Yes. Oh my gosh, y'all are great. Netflix and Hulu. Yes, girl. Look at that one, girl, guy. I love that. I'm always looking for some good Netflix suggestions. Video games, absolutely. Crochet, reading. Walk and check in with biological kids. Yes. Exercise in the morning. Very good. Play with my dogs and chickens. Somebody's got some chickens. I love it. Go ride on a motorcycle. There you go. That's something I've always wanted to do. Maybe in retirement, I'll become a motorcycle rider. Looking here, Headspace. Yes, that is how I started my meditation, was with Headspace. I love that British guy. Love his, he's just a delight to listen to. So that's how I started my meditation practices, with Headspace. And I think there's a discount for educators as well. With my dogs, yes. The Good True Crime podcast. Oh yeah, that's good. Mindless stuff, right? Way to decompress. I put up a Christmas tree for the first time and I'm enjoying redecorating. It's going to stay up all year. In February, it will become a Valentine's Day tree. What a brilliant idea. You know, that's such a great point. I missed my Christmas tree when it came down. I think lights just do something for us. These are great. Weekend connections, that's good, with college friends, yes. These are great. Track workouts. Lock my laptop in safe and give the keys to my daughter. That one's great. I love it. Sometimes it takes extreme measures. Got it. That's fantastic. Organize. Yes. Right there. Order My Private World. There's a book actually titled that, Order Your Private World. And for me, that resonated so strongly, because if I can feel that if I'm stressed, if I feel like my life is in chaos, I will come in on a weekend and organize my office, and then life seems to settle. So I get that one big time. That's huge. Shop, absolutely. Amazon's been getting a lot of business. These are great. These are great. All right, let's continue. I can sit here and look at this all day because those are some great suggestions. We'll share those so everybody can get some different suggestions from folks. One of the things that I would like for you to do, just to take a second, and I did this for myself. This was my reboot on Monday, to be perfectly honest. I was like, hold on, what's going on with you? You know, because if you are self-aware, you know when you're not right, right? And so Monday was a day when I was not in check. And so I had to take a moment and recommit to myself something I was going to do to improve my self-care. So I want you to do that right now. I'm just going to pause for a moment and I want you to write it down. We did this as a staff, and I've been having everybody put it on your laptop. So take a moment to think of something. You just got some great suggestions. What's one thing else you can do to commit to yourself, for you to do yourself, improve your self-care? All right, so I encourage you to put that somewhere. Put that somewhere so it's a constant reminder to you to do the things that do take care of you. You know, I cannot emphasize that enough. So the challenge is the balance of caring for yourself while you're caring for those you serve. And it is a tremendous, tremendous lift. It is a heavy lift right now. And in order to do that, you do have to put you first. So opportunity. This one is something that hits home with me pretty strongly. I have always been an educator who has tended to lean towards serving the underserved. As a teacher, I was a high school math teacher. I chose to teach some of the lowest level math courses because I felt like those were often kids that were looked over or not believed in. And I have several stories I could tell you about trying to advocate for certain students and running up against roadblocks that did a number on me and pushed me to move into administration, to be quite honest, because I felt like I needed to position myself to be in places where I could be stronger advocates for kids. And that's part of the reason why I went up to central office for 12 years and did the work that I did up there, and then chose to come back because I had done so much work around teaching principals and educators across the district on how to serve, but then could I put it, all the things that I had learned, could I put it into practice and make a difference? So I came to a school that was at risk at the time, and listen, and this staff member here has been amazing, and we've moved to an incredible place, but it's been as a result of a lot of hard work for the people that I serve, from the people I serve. So this is a glaring, to me, graphic. So opportunity for me is, the opportunity for us as educators right now, and this is a call to action to everybody. This is not just a Wake County issue. This is a systemic issue. This is a national issue. So those numbers represent percentages. And the total number of students, elementary students in 2018-19, if you just look at that one, was 363,000. This is across the state of North Carolina. These are statistics for the state of North Carolina. So you see here 2 years of data, and we didn't used to collect data by subgroup, and it's hard, and we couldn't find it for growth, because quite honestly, proficiency is, we don't look at proficiency to the degree that we look at growth, because you can hide behind, things can be masked in proficiency. A child can not show proficient, but have tremendous growth. A child can show proficient and not have any growth. So growth is critical, but you can't find it. And I couldn't find it for the state. We looked everywhere. I had an intern looking for it. We couldn't find it. So what you see here, unfortunately, is proficiency only, but even still, look at the glaring disparities, people. This isn't new. This isn't new. And what I'm involved in a committee at the district committee, student engagement committee, and we had to identify our problem of practice as a committee, because what everyone is struggling with is, how do we engage the unengaged? And what I get passionate about, to the point of it moving me to tears, is the kids that are unengaged were the same kids that were unengaged sitting in front of you a year ago. The very same kids. It's just glaring right now, because they have the opportunity to do some things that physically disengage them. So the disparities are just blatantly in our face, blatantly in our face. So what are we going to do? So the opportunity right now is to do something systemically and courageous that changes this. So I chose to be a part of the Student Engagement Committee, go back to my values, courage and making a difference. The thing that I get frustrated with, quite honestly, in education is the politics that are attached to it. It causes people not to make the courageous moves that sometimes are necessary. If you look at the allocation of social workers to schools, I may see mine once a week, and he's good, and that's not his fault. But I should have a full-time social worker. Our Title I schools should have more than one full-time social worker. We need to be courageous enough to put our resources where they are required to change this set of data. Y'all, this has been going on for years. We've not done anything courageous. And you teachers and administrators are working hard, but some of this is beyond our control. It's about where, as a county, as a state, as a nation, are we putting our resources to truly make a difference in these disparities? Our parents, in many situations, are at risk. Our marginalized students' parents are doing the best they can. But what are we doing to provide resources to help them see how they can do better? That takes courage. That takes courage. That takes a courageous leader. And some of those things as a principal are out of my control, but to the day I die, I will continue to advocate for the need to be courageous. So I encourage each of you to use your voice to help those who decision makers, those sitting in the seats of making decisions, to understand that if we really want to change the look of this data, then we've got to put our resources in places that will truly make a difference. This in the slide here, you're going to see some resources that I've used today, and there'll be links so you can use. You can go back and reference those. But what I'd like to do is read to you. I'm going to conclude with a couple things real quickly. As I said earlier, Brene Brown is my shero. I don't know how many of you have read this book, Daring Greatly. What I love about Brene Brown is she puts the research behind what some people might consider soft skills, like vulnerability, and how the greatest leaders are those that are truly vulnerable. 100% agree with that, because I think that develops a level of trust with those you serve when you are willing to show your heart. This book was written as a result of a quote that Theodore Roosevelt's speech, Citizenship in a Republic. One of my staff members gave me a copy of it. She rewrote "The Woman in the Arena" as opposed to "The Man in the Arena." And I'm going to take liberty here and use some more inclusive language, but I want to read it to you because each of you is in the arena, should you choose. It is not the critic who counts, not the person who points out how the strong person stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotion, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if they fail, at least fails while daring greatly. So my challenge to you is to dare greatly, to be the educator that these kids need, to be courageous enough to call to action those who are in the position to make a difference in the lives of children. Someone showed me this video and I think it's fitting. And I think, quite honestly, that each of you is a hero. So let's take a look at this.
I've got a public service announcement for every teacher, educator, and counselor out here in the world. You are American heroes. When this pandemic first took place, everybody was talking about how amazing and awesome and how essential doctors and nurses and firemen and police officers, first responders are. And I agree, but guess what? You are essential. You all are American heroes because you show up and you show out every single day for the life of these kids. And when this COVID-19 happened, you told yourself that you will not stop that from allowing you to give these kids the absolute best that they deserve. We're talking about American heroes like the first responders. We're talking about American heroes like Doctors Without Borders. They phenomenal whether they in Afghanistan or in Johns Hopkins University. They told themselves nothing will stop them from being successful. Nothing will stop them from being powerful. Nothing will stop them from bringing that aid. You all are American heroes like Representative John Lewis. He told himself nothing was going to stop him. 45 plus times arrested and put in jail. Skull fracture. He didn't sign up for that, but he signed up for justice. He signed up for equality. He signed up for love. He signed up for unity. And I know what some of you are thinking. You didn't sign up for virtual learning. You didn't sign up for masks in the class. I get it, but you did sign up for education, American hero. You did sign up to bring help and to bring comfort and to bring relief to these kids, American hero. You did sign up to be educators, to mold them and shape the hearts and minds of our future leaders, American hero. You did sign up to go above and beyond and reach these kids where they are, believing that they can do great things in the future, American hero. And I got no doubt what you can do and accomplish when you have your mindset and your perspective intact. So do me a favor, don't show the world what you can do. Show the world who you are, an American hero.
You are all American heroes, and I believe that to my very core. And if someone hasn't told you this today, please know I am incredibly, and it does bring me to tears, people, because this is amazing. I am so grateful, so grateful for the work that you've done, that you do every single day, and for the tremendous commitment you have to the kids you serve. So thank you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for all of your words. I don't know about you all, but I feel so inspired by that. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for taking the time out on your weekend to come just learn something new and do what's important for our kids and really get inspired. All right, we're going to go to our next breakout sessions. They will start at 10 o'clock. So if you need to, go grab another cup of coffee, go use the restroom. The link to the session Zoom links is in the comments in case you need it. We did a little reevaluating while we were in our session today so that the link should be a little bit easier to find on that form. So go ahead and choose your next session. Remember, the Dr. Polly session is not available. And if your room is full, please choose the other room. We will try to send out all of the links to all the recordings later on. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you soon.